Lemon Amiga present. A Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi there, welcome to another special Lemon Amiga Playguide and review. This time it's a user request. This is from John Beaumont and he requested Benefactor, and Benefactor was developed by Digital Illusions and published by Psygnosis in 1994. In Benefactor we play as Ben E. Factor, and it's our job to move through 6 levels based on the 6 moons of Miniat and rescue the people of Lulliat, known as the Merry Men. And the Merry Men are scattered around the levels, and what we have to do is to guide them home, and then we will move on to another scenario on the same planet. Yes, you did hear a bar of Battlestar Galactica, and there were a few influences, as you're about to see, which were used in the inspiration to this game. And one of those is Lemmings and maybe Toddlers as well, but you can see that this begins with a space-themed intro, even though that this game is nothing to do with space whatsoever, and there are no space-themed levels. It's just an excuse, yet again, for another space-themed intro. Benefactor begins with some jolly music, and you can see the eyes in the picture move around, and that gives us a nice feeling of fun before we even start the game. And by pressing that fire button we can check out those options. We can either play on easy, normal or hard mode, so let's just select the normal for this. We can also enter a password and load in some extra levels. Unfortunately they never did actually get around to creating a data disk. Begin on level 1 in the first moon of the game. So let's just press that fire button and check this game out. The first world is split over 9 levels, and that is known as the Underworld, otherwise known as the Caves, and we'll have to romp through 9 caves before we get through to the next world. In Benefactor we play as this small guy, and it's our job to explore the level, and this reminds me of Flashback, where we can climb on top of ledges and collect items, but in this game it's played on a smaller level, perhaps a Macro Machines version of a platformer. And you can see that we can roll and jump, and we can also perform some maneuvers, including picking up and dropping items, and we can only pick up and drop 1 item at a time, and that will appear in the bottom left corner. you can see that some of those jumps are pretty difficult, but we'll have to master the jumping in this game, as that will deplete our energy if we get that wrong, and the energy bar is on the bottom of that screen. You can see it starts off in the yellow and then it goes into the red as we take some more damage. By moving into the keyhole, that will automatically unlock this merry man, and by moving the character over the merry man and pulling back and pressing fire, hopefully we can pick up that guy, and by pushing forward and pressing fire we can then throw him up to that platform. Having managed to accomplish that simple feat on the first level, we get a power up, and that's a shoe, and there are very few power ups in this game, but just like Arabian Nights and a few of the other games that we've seen already, those really do help sometimes, particularly jumping over big distances. But you won't see too many of those power-ups dotting around, and that's a bit of a shame, but the main action is a simple platformer, and all we have to do is to make our way towards that exit and get that guy there. And as soon as we both reach the exit together, then that means that we can complete that level. At the end of each level, we'll gain a simple congratulations screen, and then we can see the next one, and of course it gives us time to write down the password as well. And you can see the introduction of the game is pretty straightforward, but you'll find that there is a cliff of danger, and it will take some time to get used to the controls and get yourself over that cliff, and having done so, hopefully you'll be able to control this game. But that learning curve is rather steep, so while I try to remember how to jump over these platforms, we'll just speed up that footage, and as you can see we can climb upon platforms just like Flashback, and I really love the animations of the jumping and the climbing in this game. By pressing the fire button quickly, we can perform a small jump, and by holding down that fire button for a longer period, we can do a longer jump, and it's that simple holding down the fire button mechanic which is defeating me, usually on this particular jump. And if you hold down the fire button and pull right, I think you'll do a medium jump, and so you'll have to combine all of those together and stand in the correct place in order to get through to the key. And there is at least one key on every level to unlock one trapped merry man, and now that we have that key, all that we need to do is to get down there and to free him. And there are a few extra features as well. Yes, we can cling on to things. On this pipe on the roof we can make our way across, and just like the SAS, that's very fun, and this game really doesn't take itself too seriously. If a friendly is killed, then that's us dead, and we can continue with an infinite continues, and that will simply reset us back to the start of that level, but you may notice it doesn't reset the score either. So that means that we can continue ad infinitum with the same score as we started with at the beginning of each level, and simply continue and continue until we manage to complete it. I think the merry men are actually vulnerable to the creatures that inhabit the level, and they can jump over gaps and things like that, so they aren't absolutely stupid like lemmings, and as long as we don't absolutely stupidly get them killed, it should mean that they can wander around the level pretty harmlessly, and they are immune to virtually everything. But we certainly aren't, and if we fall from big drops and we fall onto spikes, then we're going to lose damage, and sometimes if we collide the enemies as well, so it's best to jump over all of the enemies in the game. But you can see that there is a health pack up there, and we haven't lost any energy yet, but if we do, then sometimes there is a health pack on the level, and that means that we can get that energy back. I find of the 6 different worlds present in Benefactor, and I think there are 56 levels spread over those 6 worlds, or actually 7 worlds if you count the 2 worlds in the Hell realm, then this game really does last a long time, and it will take a few continues and quite a lot of passwords to get through the entire thing. It's not a game that you can sit down and complete in one sitting. It's one of those that you have to enter the passwords and have a go at every so often, and just like lemmings, you're supposed to continue and continue until you can actually complete the game over the space over many weeks. The first level doesn't actually encourage the player gradually, it throws them in the deep end, and you can see that some of the puzzles that have to be worked out are beginning to form, and this doesn't really change over the other levels, it's just that we gain a few more enemies. The format of the levels don't change, and once you can complete the first 9 levels, then you should be able to complete the game, except for a few hard levels towards the middle of the game. Every single level has a perfect formula to get through it, and some of the levels can also be completed in a different order, but I find the keys will only fit one keyhole, and if you make a mistake then you'll have to run around that level all over again. And you can see we've managed to rescue one guy, but there's still one guy left to find, and by retrieving that key surely I can rescue him and get that guy all the way over to the exit. You can see by pushing forward we can also make our way through tunnels and extra doors, and in later levels we'll also find hidden doors where we'll find extra bonuses, so it's always helpful to explore the entire level and to search for all those hidden doors, because you will find items worth lots of points. There is no time limit on these levels, but if you want to speed it up you can always pick up a little guy and run towards the exit. Unfortunately you can't run off a ledge, you'll have to drop him, and so you can't make endless mistakes in this game. But unfortunately you can make endless mistakes in this game if you make simple errors, and so as we shall see later on, it's not so straightforward as it looks on the surface. Benefactor was created by Digital Illusions, and you may have noticed that this level name is called The Silence. And yes, Digital Illusions were originally the Silence Demo Group, which was formed in 1988 by 4 guys all from the same place, Alvesta in Sweden, and one of those guys was the musician of this game, Olaf Gustafsson, and also the creator of Pinball Dreams, Andreas Axelsson. And in 1992 they renamed themselves Digital Illusions, and then a little bit later on they renamed themselves DICE. And Digital Illusions are most famous for creating the pinball games on the PC and on the Amiga, but Benefactor is an Amiga only exclusive game that was only ever released on the Amiga. Benefactor was coded by Thomas Anderson, and Thomas Anderson went on to Pinball Illusions after this in 1995. The graphics were mostly created by Patrick Bergdahl, and he only created graphics for this one game according to what I could find on my research, and the music, as mentioned, was Olaf Gustafsson, who created all the music for all the pinball games created by Digital Illusions, as well as Benefactor. Benefactor is split over 56 levels, and those comprise of the Underworld, the Egyptian levels, the Treetop levels, the Stones and Bones levels, the Winterland, and a Techno Treat levels, and then finally the last 2 levels are Hell, and so we'll find 9 levels of Underworld, Egypt, Treetops, Stones and Bones, Winterland and Techno, and then 2 levels of Hell at the end. And the Underworld levels, as you can see, are pretty familiar and have great graphics as well, and these are relatively well done given the fact that the Amiga has a 16 colour palette, and even though this was released as both a CD32 version and a normal OCS version, the OCS was completed in July 1994 and the CD32 was released in September of 94. Unfortunately, none of those make use of the AGA chipset. Benefactor plays music and sound effects together, and even though the sound effects don't really change from level to level, and neither does the music at least changes every world, and so we are treated to a great soundtrack. And on the CD32 version, of course, those were created on the CD image itself, and so they played like CD quality music. And so let's just play one of the tracks from the Techno world right now. You can see, just like many puzzlers, including Lemmings and Troddlers, this game really does mess with the mind, and if you know the correct way to go, then you can just romp straight through the level. Otherwise, you will have to run around for a while and try to figure out the best way to go. and sometimes there are more than one of these merry men on the level, and there can be 4 or 5 of those, and so you'll have to go around freeing every one of them, and of course taking your time, because one slip up could lead to a life over. You can see we've managed to get a merry man on a trap, and that means that we can get through to another area, and some of those merry men can rebuild platforms, rebuild ladders, and activate things and stand on things for us. And so sometimes we require those to be released in order to get through the level, and on some later levels there are definitely platforms which need rebuilding, and so if you find a cog on the level and feed that cog to a merry man, hopefully he will repair that platform, and it means that we can get out and make our way further in that level. But you can see things aren't always amazingly easy. When we have this amount of energy remaining, it's a hope and pray job. And you can see that we have left a guy hanging around, and he'll have to be released a bit later so that we can get all these guys off this level. And the enemies aren't the main problem, and neither is the time limit. And if you take your time, neither is the energy, so the player can simply get on with the job at hand. In this case we need to reach a higher platform, and the only way we can do that is to be elevated, and that means that we have to get through these puzzles. And yes, if these are attacked in a linear way, then it's a linear path all the way through each level, but of course we've no way of knowing what we're supposed to do before each level, and so we'll have to make that up as we go along. And hopefully now those guys are all ready, then they can make their way all towards the exit. You may notice that the guy that we left hanging around is already there, so what we have to do is to guide those things along, and hopefully now if we speed up this footage again, that should mean that's the level over. So whilst you see me trying to get a little bit further on this more complex level, and this requires us to put some paint into that machine that you can see there, and that will turn a zombie into a real, well, Lily Puny, or in this case it's called a merry man. And then once you have that, you'll see the ladder at the bottom also needs to be repaired, and so we'll have to find a cog somewhere and give that to a little guy to fix that ladder. I think Benefactor has a great character all of its own, and this actually reminds me of Alien Fish Finger, where we have a small character wandering around a huge maze, and this maze isn't too complex, so it baffles the mind, and you won't need to create a dizzy map to get through the game. And so these levels are large, and you can see at the very bottom of the screen it gives us a map, and you can see that the level size can scroll across the very entirety of that map, but most levels are quite small, and so it doesn't take long to figure out what you are supposed to be doing. But you can see the cog in the very top of that screen is in an accessible place, and so I'll have to scratch my head a bit further to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing in this particular case. And that's the paint that we need for the machine. And so all of this brings us on to the scores, and the lowest score that I could find came from Amiga Power, where Mark Winstanley, as he was known then before he changed to Cam Winstanley, gave this 57%, complaining that the game was annoying, contained annoying puzzles, annoying music and annoying dead-end traps which would kill the player and leave them in a dead-end no-win situation. Amiga Format gave Benefactor 68%, Amiga Joker gave it 76%, Amiga Computing awarded it 80%, the current Lemon score is 84%, the One awarded this 86%, Steel Amiga gave it 87%, and a great review as well. Amiga Dream awarded this 88%, Amiga Concept gave it 90%, and the highest joint score that I could find came from Amiga Action, who also awarded this an incredible 90%, which gives this game Benefactor the average score of 8 out of 10. And that's the zombie released, and what we have to do is to guide him under that paint machine and turn him into a good guy. And whilst you see me fruitlessly failing to do that, let's just experiment with the music again, with the music from the Egyptian level. I think with 56 levels on offer and different landscapes, Benefactor has something for everybody. Unfortunately, you won't be seeing me playing this on any later levels on this Playguide, and as I say, most of the later levels play exactly the same as these, only in a different setting, with only the Stones and Bones levels, which are slightly different, and those are the levels that I played in the Lemon Amiga competition, which we played this game recently in the compo, and well, it was pretty difficult, I have to say, because we chose the Stones and Bones levels, which are perhaps the hardest in the entire game. This game does have a sense of humour, but it can also be very frustrating as well, particularly when you haven't got a clue what to do. And so in the days of YouTube you can find out by watching long play, but back in the day of course it was very difficult and you have to attempt the thing by trial and error. So this isn't as forgiving as some platform games and some puzzlers, and the solution isn't automatically obvious that I had to give a cog to this guy, which is on the other end of that landscape, and because I failed to give a cog to that guy, he will now no longer complete that ladder, and now that means that level is impossible to complete. And it means I'm now scratching my head wondering where it all went wrong. And so that's why Amiga Power decided to rate this game down, because it does have some drawbacks and it isn't a straightforward trial and error game like Lemmings where you can try different things out, because if you get it wrong just like this then there is no way out. And so, well, unfortunately that's the end. And you can see that even the key unfortunately does nothing, and we cannot get out of this situation. Luckily we can press the escape key at any point, and that will escape the action. And when that happens, then we will gain a choice to continue the level or quit back to the main page, and for this one I'm going to select Game Over. A great theme on that high score table. But just to give you an idea of some of those later levels, here is that Egyptian level. You can see it has great artwork in the background, and there was actually a level editor released for this game called BME, which was released in the Aminet and in the public domain in April of 2007, and unfortunately BME managed to reach up to level version 2, and unfortunately cannot save or export your maps which we have edited with the editor. So the editor is there on the Aminet, and yes, Stones and Bones was a table, a pinball table in the pinball games, and those are very difficult indeed. And after that we will also find the snow levels, which are again pretty difficult, and it's sometimes a great picture that we are given in between the levels, reminding us of other Psygnosis games. Just in case you are any doubt that these guys were the Silents and they came from a demo coder's background, well, if you leave the title sequence to roll just a little bit, you'll gain a little bit of demo code, and you can see those guys running around on a beach, reminding us of a Dizzy game, just like the treetop levels. And so thank you once again for viewing another Lemon Amiga Playguide and review. Thank you.